Hello, and welcome to the Hidden Gifts of Loss podcast. And I'm Julie Trainer, your host. And today I have Melissa Beckham as my guest. And we were actually connected in a very interesting way. She did a bucket list challenge through Modern Prairie, which is the Melissa Gilbert's The Little House on the Prairie group. And I think it was a book club. And I think they did a bucket list challenge of things to do, things on your bucket list, maybe that some of them might be scary. So this is Melissa's first podcast. So I'm really honored that she is willing to come on and do this. And we are going to talk about being caregivers for our parents today. And before we came on, we were talking about how that once somebody goes through that experience, I think it bonds you with others who've gone through something similar. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And Melissa, welcome. And I really
Thank
appreciate you being here. Yeah.
I think this is my first podcast.
Excellent. We're just going to talk. We're just going to talk about our parents and caring for them and what that was like. So I understood that you took care of your mom and your dad.
Yes. I was brought up with a long line of caregivers. My parents took care of my grandparents, my mom's parents. My mom took care of them even when she was sick. And that I saw her go through the struggle with my grandmother and taking care of my dad and my mom. I didn't have to bathe them and do all that, but I did take care of their doctor's appointments, making sure I asked a lot of questions. I made sure that they were getting the best care they possibly could. Learned that from my mom and my dad about asking questions because my mom found out they had my grandmother on some wrong medication. They were treating her for something that she wasn't needing to be treated for. So that's what brought me to ask a lot of questions when I was taking care of my dad. My mom had Crohn's disease. She also had COPD, which is what finally took her, the COPD. But through all of that, I learned how to take care of people. And to me, doing that helps with the grieving process in the end because that you have done everything you can to take care of them and to do whatever it took to make them better. And they kept with my dad. I had to end up putting him in a nursing home, which I promised both of them I'd never do. But Dad had a wound when he broke his hip, and we were just going in for rehab from breaking his hip. And we found out that when he fell, he got a scrape on his backside that broke down underneath the skin. So they had to debris it, and it went all the way to the bone. So then we had to go into a whole different thing with the nursing home. And it was a battle we lost, but what I gained from it, from doing it, I didn't think I was able to do it. I had nurses and doctors and everybody telling me I needed to go into the nursing home or medical care. My husband played the devil's advocate. He told me no. He said, if you do, you will either end up in jail because you will knock somebody out for mistreating your patients, or you will get too attached to them and it will just break you every time you lose somebody. But it was something I considered, but I agreed with him. He's a good man. He told me he would support me in whatever I did. But knowing what I went through with Daddy, he said, you're not only going to be fighting with the system to get the best care for those patients, you're going to be fighting the families. And I can't wrap my head around that because to me, our parents raised us. When they get that age where they need to be taken care of, it's our duty. It's our duty. And it's an honor for me to be able to take care of them.
I agree. Absolutely.
Everything. But I learned in the nursing home, there's people that just drop people off at the nursing home and just walk away.
Oh my God. That's heartbreaking.
They're losing that gift. And that is a gift to be able to take care of your parents
Yes.
because you learn so much from them in that time, even if they can't talk to you, even if they can't communicate with you, everything that's going on. You learn so much from them and their character and what made them who they are, which in turn makes you who you are. And it's a gift that everybody should cherish. Even though it was very hard, I come home bawling sometimes, I come home mad sometimes, I come home. My husband, he would have to say, let's take a breath, calm down, because I would be so wound up. But the honor of taking care of them and seeing in depth what made them who they are, because when they're sick, and even dad ended up getting dementia and Alzheimer's towards the end. Even when he couldn't talk to me, got I still learned things from him on what it was to take care of somebody and to give of yourself. And he was a very giving person and he had very strong faith, but he was very silent. He wasn't something that he would throw in your face. And all the doctors kept telling me toward 2 years before we finally made the decision to put him on hospice, you need to do this. You need to sign a DNR. And he did not do that when he first went in the nursing home because he wanted everything done possible. We lost his mom while he was in the nursing home to a brain aneurysm, which both of his parents passed away with brain aneurysms. And I told him he couldn't go to his mom's funeral because he wasn't physically able. So we come and told him about my grandmother. And at that point, we decided because there was a lot of paperwork he was going to have to sign for inheritance and all that kind of stuff to make me his power of attorney, medical and physical. At that point, I told him, I said, I'm not going to make any decisions as long as you are able to tell me yes or no in a clear mind. I'm not making any decisions for you. I will get your approval before I make those decisions.
Yeah.
And at that point, he was okay and he understood that. And what was so amazing, there were decisions that I have to make, and he would be in and out of reality. And the times I needed him there, needed to know what his decision was, I would go home and I'd pray about it and I'd cry about it and I'd worry about it and I'd go in the next day. He'd be clear minded and he'd tell me what he wanted. No doubt. And when they kept pushing me to sign the DNR, and I finally asked him if that's what he wanted me to do, he told me yes. He was clear minded that day. But they also wanted me to put him on hospice that day. And I said, no. I said, one thing at a time. Y'all are not pushing me into putting him into hospice anytime earlier. I'll know when it's time. There will be no doubt in my mind because I know where he is. I know how he feels. And I'm not going to do anything that not yet. It's not time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want people to know is don't let them push you into that. Don't let them push you to do something that you in your heart don't feel like is right at the time.
Yeah. And it sounds like you really were
And
connected with your inner guidance and really tuned into him.
yes,
And that's really important that you trust that.
and being connected to him as deeply as I was at that time because I was with him every day, 16 hours a day, taking care of him. I could have done it at home, but my worry was I wouldn't catch something early enough. That's why I kept him in the nursing home, but I was like 3 minutes away from the nursing home. I was there all the time.
Oh.
And being able to connect with him in that way The final days, we had we had gotten the wound where it was looking good. It was getting healthy. It was healing, everything. And then one day the nurse come to me, his wound care nurse, because I'd switched nursing homes, which my grandmother had begged me to do before she passed. And when I finally did it, I felt her in my heart and in my head saying, I told you to do this a long time ago. I'm glad you finally did it. I have these conversations with them all the time because I can hear what they were telling me and what they tell me.
Mhm.
And when I get off subject, I'm sorry.
No, no, this
But
is all you're talking about the hidden gifts. You're great. You're totally on subject.
uh, we went, she told me that his wound, she had tried everything and it seemed to be breaking down. So we went, I said, okay, let's just get him to wound care and let's see what they say. Because I had an amazing team of doctors. I would go in, I would ask questions, they would answer the questions. I'd go home, I'd research it to death. I'd go back in and say, okay, this is what I've researched. Why are we not doing this?
Mhm.
And they were all right there. And at first, when I started this journey with him, I was terrified. I was in my nerves was like crazy because I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I don't understand this. Why? And I learned that the doctors I was working with would always give me the worst case scenario. And I learned how to ask, okay, this is the worst case scenario. How far are we from that worst case scenario? And where do we go from here to stop us from getting to that worst case scenario?
Mhm.
And that is something that I learned, a gift that I learned there. But when we went to wound care that last time, Dr. Berquist, wonderful doctor, beautiful, walked in. He looked at it, he took his temperature, and he said, Melissa, and I said, you don't have to say it. He said, we can put him in the hospital. But he said, I'm afraid his body is shutting down. And I said, no, we're not going in the hospital. It's time. I know it's time because he had that blank look in his eye. And I knew that was the time to put him on hospice. We went back to the nursing home, put him on hospice, and 24 hours later, he was gone.
You know, Mhm.
But that to me makes me know that I knew when the right time was and to follow my gut. Always trust your gut.
Absolutely. That's such good advice. Yep. Nobody
And
knows better than you. You were there with him the whole time. You knew.
and I think I understand a little bit better because when his father passed away, they had to make the decision on whether to put him on life support or not.
Oh.
And daddy had a really hard time with that. And he was mad at my grandmother for a long time because he wasn't so mad that he wouldn't speak to her, but he was mad and he was hurt because he thought they should have put him on life support.
Oh, and she
And
didn't.
she didn't because
Mhm.
she knew she had talked to the doctors and knew the extent of the aneurysm and what all it had done. My grandfather never told her about the aneurysm because he knew he had it, but it was inoperable and they knew there was nothing they could do. And he just went to sleep one night and never woke up. She couldn't get him to wake up. They took him to the hospital and they told her what had happened. And like I said, he had only shared that with the preacher. He had never shared that with her. But she knew.
Yeah.
She knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
And I think daddy understood that later on, but it took him a while to get to that point. And that's what made me know I'll know when it's the right time.
Yep.
And that night, I was telling you, as we talked before, I was telling you that night I looked, I mean, I'd been there since 4 o'clock in the morning.
Ugh.
He had real high fever. They had taken him off his feeding tube. And that was the hardest thing for me, is
Mhm.
them taking him off his feeding tube, because it was like, I'm gonna starve him to death. In all reality, they don't know that. He was already shutting down. His brain was already gone.
Mhm.
But he was there, and I laid on the bed and dozed off during the night. But about 3:30 the next morning, I walked over to him, and he was having a hard time breathing and stuff. And I walked over to him and I said, "Daddy, you've put up a hard fight. You've done everything. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Yeah.
You can do. I've done everything I could do. It's time to go home
Mhm.
and
Mm.
be with mama."
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
I told him I gave him a good he did a good job with me,
Oh.
and I could make it. I would be fine.
Mm.
And I told him that Darryl was there with me. He wasn't there at that time because he felt like I needed to be alone with Dad. But I said, "Daryl's here. He'll take care of me. He'll be here for me. I'm fine. You did a good job raising me. Go home and be with mom."
Yeah.
Mom. And he took his last breath, and he was gone.
Mm. You just need to
And
hear that.
yeah, and I think a lot of times they do
Mhm.
need to hear that. We did
Yeah.
the same thing with his dad.
Yeah.
We moved his dad over here, my husband's dad. He took care of him,
Wow.
cancer, and he took him back and forth to his treatments. He took him, did everything with helping him cleaning up his wound, and me learning wound care and learning stuff. I was able to help him with that. But we moved him over here and put him in hospice over here. He lived a week. Like I said, I was raised from a long line of caregivers. Even my grandmother on my dad's side took care of her parents. I
Mhm.
didn't know them, but I do know that she took care of them.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, the one that I'm talking about now, she was my dad's mom. She
Mhm.
lived till she was 96. She worked full time till she was 95. She didn't start public work till she was 63 after my grandfather passed, because she didn't want to be in the house all day by herself. And my uncle told me one year at Christmas that it would take 3 people to replace her if she ever decided to retire. And
What
even
did
after
she
she
do?
retired,
What
she
kind of
traveled them. It was a hardware and furniture store. It was my and uncle's hardware and furniture store, and she knew more about the hardware than anybody. Funny story, my uncle went down one day, and she was sitting on a stool in her tub, caulking around the edge of her tub. And he said, "Mama, why didn't you call me to do that?" And she said, "'Cause you wouldn't do it right." She was one of those people. Even after she retired, I'd call her and I'd ask her, "How you doing today?" and give her an update on Daddy. And she said, "Oh, I'm cleaning out cabinets, or I'm cleaning out my closet." And she had carpet in her kitchen. She mopped the carpet just like she would mop a floor. And if there was a spot, she'd get on her hands and knees and get it up. She
oh my
wanted carpet in the kitchen. We begged her to take it out, but she wouldn't do it. So, but she was always going. And that strength got me through with Daddy, pulling from her strength. And she was more she hated doctors. She would go to the doctor if she needed to. She very seldom needed to. She had one surgery that I know of in her whole life, and that was a hemorrhoid surgery. She would kill me for saying that.
what kind of
But
surgery?
hemorrhoid surgery,
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
she would kill me for hemorrhoids. But we found out after she passed, she took 23 vitamins a day, and she was healthy as a horse.
Wow. And she passed when your dad was in the hospital. Is that right?
In home, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And they airlifted her to Nashville, and we all went up there, and because they told us she probably wouldn't live very long. And we all went up there, and I looked at her and I said, "How was your first flight?" She said, "Didn't like it, don't wanna do it again," because she was
Sure.
airlifted in a helicopter.
That was her first flight
And
at
she
95?
was Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah, she said, "Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't go on a plane, but I'm not going on a helicopter again." But
That's so
Yeah.
cute. I love that.
she was funny, but she got up with a headache and wasn't feeling really well, and it was almost 30 years to the day after my grandfather passed. His was inside his brain, hers was on the bottom part of her brain, and they said they probably could operate, but at her age, they didn't want to do it, and they said it probably wouldn't give her any kind of quality of life if they did. And and then they said she'll slowly slip into a coma. Mhm. And but we were all able to say goodbye to her and tell her we loved her, and even to the very last minute, she was laughing and cutting up with us.
Wow.
And it was their generation was so different than ours, because both of my grandparents on my mom's side, now they died at younger ages, but they were people who did okay, my grandfather on my mom's side, both of them on my mom's side had gallbladder surgery right before they passed,
And
about a year before they passed. They come through the surgeries with flying colors. Granddaddy was sitting up in the bed in the recovery room, legs crossed, Indian style, telling the nurse she better bring him a cigarette or he was gonna whip her. And the doctors talked to mama after his surgery and said he should have died years ago because his appendix burst. And mama asked granddaddy about it after he came home, and he said, "I remember when I was 9 years old, my side hurt really bad, and they gave me Castrals, and I sat in the corner, and I got to feeling better, and I got up and went back to work." Yes, and he was fine. He
what?
never had any problems after that, and the doctor looked at him and said, "Yeah, he probably should have died from that."
Wow, that's
But
amazing. So these were strong people.
a very strong people. I came from a long line of my grandmother on my mom's side. She had what they called back then phlebitis, but she had a real bad sore on her leg. But didn't stop her. She went to the garden every day. She helped with the grandkids. She put up the garden. We killed hogs every year. She helped do that. They didn't have running water till I think they had started having running water when I was 13, and they got a bathroom in their house when I was 17. They would go out and draw the water, and that was the best water. The
Oh.
best.
Water.
Yes, and but living with that and all of us being so close, and families don't have that anymore.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
don't, and the younger generation don't appreciate the older generation, and what I got from all of them, I would sit at my granddaddy's knee and listen to his stories, and he would teach me how to read signs of nature. Leaves are turned over, it's gonna rain. If you see a woolly worm this type of year, that means we're having an early fall. If little things like that, if something would happen in nature, I would run over to him and I'd say, "Granddaddy, what's this mean? What's this mean? What's this mean?" Stuff that I cherish. And I want to get the message out to people, young and old. You need to cherish the time that you have with your parents at the end of all their lives, but especially at the end, because you learn so much. Even if they're not talking to you, you learn what you have inside you, because it brings it out of you what they have taught you all your life.
Mhm. Mm. And that's such a gift that
And
you would miss out on if you weren't there.
exactly. And I feel like our generation that's coming up now are in such a rush that they don't pick up on those things. They don't pick up on the little things that they miss out on those things. No matter how little they seem when you look back on it, there's times that it has different meanings for me in my life. There's days that it has a meaning of, hey, I understood that. I know that. That's what he meant by that. And then there's days that I just relish in just thinking about how they would handle a situation because I knew them so well. And I'll be walking down the street or something, and I'll see something, or me and my husband will be talking about something, and I'll say, okay, yes, Dad, I hear you. Shut up. I know. Okay, I got it. You gonna kick me in the butt for it. I get it. Went into the hospital 3 weeks ago now because my heart went up to 208 beats a minute, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I was laying in the hospital bed while they had the heart monitor and all that kind of stuff on me, trying to figure out what was causing it and if it was going to do it again. And I heard my dad say, and my grandmother both of them, not just one of them, both of them, been telling you for how long now? Slow down.
Well,
And I'm sitting here, okay, I hear you. You got my attention. Between oh and God, you got my attention. I'm slowing down. But I said, you do know, I talk to them like that, either out loud or in my heart. You do know that y'all are the ones that taught me to be this way.
it's
You know, Grandma, you worked till you was 96. Daddy, you worked all your life. Y'all taught me this is in my DNA. So how you want me to do this? And I have those conversations with him like, yeah, you did.
Yep.
But
I love that. I love that. I have that kind of thing too. I have this dialogue with them all the time.
and, I mean, when I was after Mama, like I said, I wasn't there when she passed. I did sit down and write her a letter and was able to say goodbye to her in that letter. And the thing of it is, I knew she felt it. I knew she was there because she and I were real close. And I knew she got it. My dad told me that she had wanted to talk to me before she passed. And that is the one thing that keeps hanging over my head. What did she want to talk to me about? And Daddy didn't know.
Interesting.
And I still don't know what she wanted to talk to me about. I've looked through her Bible, I've looked through everything, seeing if she left me a letter or anything like that. But I'm more at peace at it now because I think she was going to tell me, because she had told me this before. She wanted me to put her in a nursing home.
She wanted you to.
Yes. And she
Okay.
wanted me to put Daddy in a nursing home when it got to a point, because she didn't want me to have to take care of them like she had taken care of her parents. And I told her, I said, Mom, that is not what we do. I said, as long as I can take care of you, I will. So we had that conversation before, and I think she was wanting to reiterate that to me
Mhm.
and to give me some hints about Daddy. But me and her had talked about Daddy for years and how stubborn he was. I love my daddy to death, but he was stubborn. And what would me and Daddy argue? That was our thing. We
Mhm.
argued just for the heck of arguing. It wasn't that I was being disrespectful. It's just that I knew I could argue with him. And it was fun. That was
Yeah.
our fun. And Mama said, I can't take you to anywhere. Y'all are always arguing. And I said, but yeah, I know I said, I know how far to push. And I know when he gets the look in his eye and he says no, just shut up.
Yeah. Mm.
I had to do a report for school. We were doing I was in family living and we was doing a report on when do you think your daughter is a perfect age for dating or getting married, for doing things. And I sat down in my daddy's knee and I started asking him these questions. And he looked at me, he said, "You ain't dating till you're 18." And I looked at him and I grinned real big and I said, "Wait a minute. You're telling me I'm not dating till I'm 18. Yet you married my mom when she was 17 and took her out of state because you were in the Air Force.
Wow.
And I can't wait date till I'm 18." And he said, "And that is precisely the reason you can't." We'll see about that. And the thing, he let me go out when I was 15 with a 19-year-old that was in the National Guard.
What?
But he told me I had to be home by 10:30. I was home at 9:30 because the guy would not talk at all.
Oh, wow.
We said 5 words the whole time we were out.
Oh, that doesn't sound
And
fun.
then we come home. He comes in the house. He sits there and talks to my mom and my dad till 4 o'clock in the morning. When
I bet
he
you never went
leaves
out with him again.
no, when he leaves, I looked at my dad and I said, "Daddy, I love you. I respect your opinion, but don't ever pick another date for me again." "Don't worry, I won't."
Oh my goodness.
And 6 months later, this guy marries this same guy marries a girl because he likes her stereo.
Mm.
And I looked at Daddy and I said, "You see what you almost got me into?" Man, we had a ball over that one. For years, we had a ball.
Oh, wow. It sounds like you
And
had
my
such a good
mom
relationship with them, with both of them.
and my yeah, and my mom, I would go out. I was strange. I was a strange kid. I was a homebody. I'd go wherever mom and daddy went. I stayed home most of the time. But I'd go out with a guy one time, and I'd say, I'd come in and look at mom. He was okay, but I'm not gonna go out with him again. And when I met my husband, I drug him into the house to meet my parents.
Oh,
And then I after he left, I looked at my mom and I said, "If he asks me out again and you do not let me go, I will never speak to you again."
oh,
And she said she knew that day that I was gonna marry him.
oh my gosh. Wow. You
She
knew
knew
too, it
that day.
sounds.
I have always had a close relationship with my parents.
Mhm.
And I had a brother. He's not in the picture anymore, due to his own screw ups. I did call him while my dad was in the nursing home. No, I asked my dad if he wanted me to call him, and he said no. Before my mom passed away, I called him. I had some things that I needed to deal personally with him and told him how I felt. Told him that I thought he was doing wrong by not coming to see our parents, that my mom was really worried about him and stuff like that. I said, "But I don't need to be around you just for my own survival. I don't need you in my life. I have to forgive you, and I do, but I don't have to have you in my life. Just go see your parents."
Yeah.
And the last thing he said to me before that phone call, "Take care of mom and dad. If anything happens, let me know."
No.
I did talk to mom about that, and she told me, she said, "I wish you and him would get along, were able to get along, but I know if it's meant to happen, it will." But she said, "As far as I'm concerned, do not." She said, "I felt this way before, but I feel even strongly about it now. When I die, don't call him."
No. No.
Because if he can't come see me when I'm alive, I don't want him to come see me out of guilt when I'm dead. When she passed, I looked at my mom or my dad and my nephew, his son, and I said, do y'all want Craig here? If you do, I will call him. That is the only way I will break my promise to Mama.
Mhm.
And they said the same thing Mama did. He's known where we live. Our numbers haven't changed. No,
Mhm.
we don't.
Yeah.
The whole time Daddy was in the nursing home, when he was at himself, I'd say, Daddy, do you want me to call Craig? No, do not want him here.
Yeah.
And he pretty much cut himself out of our lives.
Yeah.
So I didn't have him to fall back on. But at the same time, there was years there that I felt like I was the only child.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we were so much happier and it was so peaceful.
Mm.
I worked for the first half of my life till I was 14, 15 years old, trying to have a close relationship with my brother, and it just wasn't going to happen. And he
Mhm.
would just go away and disappear for years at a time.
Um,
And he
and he
was
was up.
bad with drugs, bad
Mhm.
alcoholic, bad.
Mhm.
He was in bad stuff. And I hate that mom and daddy didn't get to see him before they passed.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
think they're better off that they didn't
Mhm.
because mama would have been in tears because he he told her at one point he was called to preach. But about 4 or 5 years later, after that, he was in a bad car wreck, and he told mom that he openly denied God.
Children what?
He openly denied God that day when he was in the
Oh,
wreck.
um, and
And he still had the hope that he would come back
mhm.
to that.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to take that hope away from her.
Sure.
So I told her there was things he did to me that they don't know about.
Mhm.
And my husband and I argued over that point several times. And I said, why should I allow him to bring them more pain?
Yeah.
He brought them enough pain. This is between me and him. He and I are going to deal with it. They don't have to be a part of it.
Mhm.
And I told Daryl, I said, I can't take that dream away from mama.
Mhm. It sounds like you totally did the right thing and that being with them, that was the best thing for all of you, your parents and you, that you got that
Yeah.
time. Wow. Wow, Melissa, you have quite a story. And you had said to me that you weren't sure what you were going to talk about.
Right? I just feel like if we could get out there to everybody to cherish the elderly, to cherish their parents, to cherish their loved one, and spend quality time with them.
Exactly. Yes.
Even
Yeah.
if it's quiet time, just spend quality time with them. Learn what you can learn from them because they have so much to offer us.
Yes, absolutely. And you're going to be at peace knowing you did that.
Yes.
That's good
It, it,
for
it,
everybody.
it does give you peace. Knowing that you were there, knowing that you've done everything you can, that you fought as hard as you can, you were fighting there with them at all times,
Yep.
gives you so much peace.
Yeah.
So much
I
peace.
I feel the same. I had my mom's last 10 weeks of her life. I was there with her every day. And that was such
Yeah.
a blessing to have that time that I feel the
Right.
same way. Peace and just gratitude, right? For that special time. Wow. So this is you are lovely. This is just such an important message to share that how important it is to cherish our parents and grandparents and just, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that Do you have any other parting words? I think everything you've said has been just wonderful and just such evidence of the hidden gifts that can come with loss. So I really
The whole
appreciate
thing
you.
I would be open your heart and listen to them when they're alive. And also open your heart and listen to them when they're dead because they still will talk to you.
Yeah.
They will guide you. They're your guardian angels there. They will all guide you where you need to go. If you're ever in doubt, I pray a lot. I talk to God a lot, but then I also say, okay, what would you do, Bo? What would you do that? What would you do, Grandma? In this situation, what would you do? And just leave your heart open. Don't let the grief shut you down.
Yeah.
Because it can shut you down. But if you open your heart and let them still communicate with you, you will be able to hear them.
Yeah. Mm, it's so true. Thank you so much.